Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hillcrest Tennis Live Series. We are glad to be back, and we're in the tennis office today, and just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. And there we go. Sorry. So we're going to be talking a little bit about our tennis IQ. All right. And really, what is a tennis IQ, right? So we're going to be discussing how we can improve our IQ and how we can. There's 3 levels, and how we can bridge the gap between each level. Okay, so building a tennis IQ. A lot of recreational players feel like they don't win as much as they should, and but the problem is recreational players play and think the wrong way. And so I'm going to kind of give a little bit of insight as to what that should look like. And also the third thing is the perfect stroke is kind of fool's gold. It's really, having the proper stroke technique is important, but what is even more important is the strategy and the tactical aspect of the game that a lot of people they skip, and they think that that's not as necessarily important. But in my opinion, that's where, regardless of how you hit the ball, it's where you hit the ball and when and where you hit the ball is most important. So we'll be discussing that. So if we think about if we are giving an analogy, what tennis to me is 50% poker and 50% chess. So if you ever have watched ESPN poker, and you see the guys with glasses, they've got the hoodies on, those kinds of things, they are hiding that emotion, from their opponent. And so to me, there's a lot of emotion that comes attached with tennis, but for those that can have the emotional intelligence to the emotional IQ, the better and the more effective a player can be. When our emotions get the best of us, now we don't logically think, and we have a more difficult time making those decisions in the game time decisions. So, that having that emotional IQ and recognizing your opponent's weaknesses, recognizing your opponent's the things that are happening within the white lines, and the outside the court, that's really things that we can't control, but recognizing those things that we can control, which is our emotions, and recognizing how we can capitalize on what's going on on the other side, and also on our side of the court. Okay, and so then if you think about chess, the game is 50% chess. You're looking 2 or 3 shots in. So, for example, okay, I'm going to hit 2 balls cross court to make my opponent take 2 or 3 steps away from the center of the court, and now that will open up my shot to hit to the open court, whether it's a cross court shot or a down the line shot for me. So really thinking about those 2 or 3 shots ahead, and how you structure your points, and how you tactically and strategically approach each point and each game and each set and match. Okay. So really, when you think about it, poker is in between points, because typically we analyze our emotion and based on the result of the point. I would say that's fairly typical. If we win the point, it's our emotions, right, are a positive thing. If we lose the point, typically people get emotional and negative in that regard. So, thinking about keeping that poker face for as much as possible so that your opponent doesn't know how they are affecting you. And then chess is during the point, again, thinking, 2 or 3 shots ahead. Okay, so there are 3 levels of IQ. And the first is typically the beginners. Just think about back when you were just starting out. You're really focused on you and what you're doing and the ball and what the ball is doing. And so it's just, you're developing that IQ. You're developing all of the technical aspects of the game, which is important. We have to start on that foundation in order to take that next step. And then the second one is, so you have the player, the ball, plus what's going on your side of the court. Okay, so focusing on what's happening over on your half. Where is the ball landing on your court? Where are you in relation to the ball? Where are you in relation on the court? Are you moving forward? Are you moving backward? Or are you neutral? Okay, and then level 3 of IQ is all of those plus what is going on the opponent's side of the court. So what are you doing to affect your opponent? Okay, and we'll get into all of those details here in a minute. But first, we're going to talk about zones of the court. Okay, and I have a little diagram. So if you think about the court, as we break it up into 6 sections. Okay, so this is the net here. Okay, and in the service box, okay, we have those first 2 zones, zone 1 and zone 2. Okay, and then from the service line to the baseline, we have zones 3 and 4. And then from the baseline to the fence, we have zones 5 and 6. Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about the zones. Typically, I would say a high percentage of club players and recreational players, they are positioned in zones 3 and 4. So you're kind of in no man's land, okay? And if we think about where you would like to be, I would say ideally somewhere between 4 and 5 and 1 and 2. So that zone 3, that's really kind of a transition space. So we're really not wanting to spend too much time in zone 3. It's really only you hit the ball and then you move into these zones here. Okay, so if you think about some of the pro players that we see playing on TV or live, I would say Rafa Nadal, for example, he spends a lot of time specifically in zone 6, but 5 and 6 is kind of where he likes to be. If we're going to throw it way back to the 1990s and in the early 2000s, we had Pat Rafter, if any of you guys remember him. He was a serve and volleyer. He was a chip and charge player. So he was spending a lot of time in zones 1 and 2, transitioning through 3. Okay, so and we're going to talk a little bit about on that IQ level number 3. We're going to really talk about recognizing where your opponent is standing and where your ball is landing and how it's affecting where your opponent is standing. Okay, so we'll refer back to these zones. And when you're playing and when you're watching, specifically when you're watching, recognize where people are standing in those zones, and you will see how being in certain zones can affect the result of the point. Okay, so now we're going to move on to one of the things that is kind of kills your IQ, it really hurts your IQ score, is focusing too much on the technique of things. Technique is extremely important, but if you think to when you are playing a match and when you go to a match play situation, technique, it should not ever be a thought. You really need to be focusing on that strategic and tactical aspects of the game. And so that can really be a detriment to a player when they're focusing too much on like, oh man, I didn't brush up enough, or I didn't give it enough topspin. Those are the kinds of things that can, or it's like, oh, I didn't get my elbow up on my stroke, or I didn't get my racket back early enough. Those are the kinds of things that will deter us from what's really important, especially in match play situations, and that is that tactical and strategic aspect of things. Okay, so there's 5 awarenesses that we need to look at when we're thinking about our tennis IQ. All right. First is body momentum. What is your body momentum on the court, and what is your opponent? Okay. And so are they moving? Does the shot that you hit, is that moving them back, or are they moving forward into zones 2 and 1? Are they neutral? And then number 2 is, where are your shots landing in the court? Okay, so are they landing deep? Are they landing short, in the middle of the court? Are they being hit wide? Where are you standing? Number 3, where are you standing in the court? Are you too much in zone 3 and you're getting yourself into a little bit of trouble? Or are you in zone 5 and they're hitting the ball short, and so you're not moving up to the ball? And then number 4 is your strike zone, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then what is your position? Are you being offense? Are you being defense? Are you being neutral? So we just covered those. Okay, so we're going to move into level 1 of your tennis IQ. So we're going to get a little bit more detailed here. So level 1 is, think about when you are teaching a child to catch the ball. The sending part comes really easy, right? For them to be able to throw or to roll the ball, that happens pretty instantaneously. I mean, it'll the technique of things doesn't really have to be down, but it's really easy for them to throw the ball or, to hit the balloon back. But it's that receiving aspect of things that really is it's more difficult for a child to be able to catch that ball. And so in tennis, for our junior program here, we really try and progress that. We have a certain progression that we do, so it's an easy bounce and catch. And then we progress into things that are more advanced. And so in tennis, the receiving skill is definitely one of the skills that we do not practice enough. And so definitely something that as a coach, I really have to be aware of is the receiving aspect of things will help your tennis IQ develop, and it will be your success rate will you'll bridge that gap from losing to winning by understanding the receiving end of things, because the sending part, the actual hitting of the ball and that strike zone, those are all very important, but it's that reception skill that we really have to work on. So something that I like to do specifically when I'm playing is kind of a strike zone audit. So you break the strike zone down into sections, okay? So 4, 3, 2, 1, okay? And so these are the locations in which you make contact with the ball. Last week we discussed how when we hit the ball, as the ball bounces and we're making contact, somewhere between your shoulder and your knee height, those are ideal spots to hit to. Okay, so I would say from 3 down to 2, somewhere in there, those are ideal spots to hit. If you do hit it above your shoulder, now you're in a weak position to hit. So it's very weak up here, and if it's too low, so if it's in zone 1, now we're going to be hitting the ball up, and we're going to set ourselves up for setting ourselves up for our opponent to be successful against us. Okay, so when you think about this, we'll revert back to this strike zone thing, strike zone audit in level 3. Okay, so now let's discuss level 2. Okay, so that is what is going on our side of the court. What is happening with us as the player, and so our decision making is more advanced. Okay, and really, the big thing here is, where are you standing on the court? Where are you? Are you in zone 4 or 5, or are you in zone 6? And so what's your momentum? Are you moving forward? Are you moving backwards? Are you neutral? Where is the ball landing on my side? Is your opponent hitting in zone 3? So then, if your opponent's hitting in zone 3, you should be moving from 4 to 2 or 1, so you should be moving forward this way. What is your strike zone? So are you hitting it above your shoulder? So these are all self-checks and self-audits that you should be analyzing in practice, because when you do it in practice and you do it enough, it will become second nature, and then you don't have to think about it. Just like when you hit a forehand, you don't have to think about the technique because you've done it over and over and over again. Okay, and the last thing in level 2 is, the self-check is the shot from your opponent. How difficult was that? Was it a shot in the middle of the court, or did you have to take 4 or 5 steps in order to get it? So one drill that I like to do is I call it depth coding. And so it's basically your partner that you're playing with. We've broken up the court into these zones, and you're going to announce where the ball is landing on your court. Okay, and it just really helps with that awareness, and it really helps with your body momentum awareness, and then also your shot selection. Okay, all right, so we're moving into level 3, and again, this is the focusing on what's going on your opponent's side. What are you doing to affect your opponent? Okay, and this really is the your tactical aspect of your game has improved, very little technical. And this is where our sabotage game plan and strategy and tactics come into play. I heard a analogy the other day that really kind of stuck with me, and it says, they said, don't be your opponent's ball machine. Sabotage their level of play. So lower their level of play. So then it doesn't force you that you have to hit a winner. Make them make the mistake. Sabotage their level of play. And your decision making is really what strike zone are you making your opponent hit in? Are they hitting above their shoulder, or are they hitting in zone in 3 and 2 every time? If that's the case, then we really have a problem. Another decision making is where is your opponent? Are they backing up? Are they neutral? Are they moving forward? And then also, where is your ball that you've hit landing on your opponent's side? And so things like that really, those are the decision-making skills and understanding, and that IQ really comes into play, is not recognizing that you're not the focus. What you as the player are doing to your opponent to affect their level of play. And that's that paradigm shift, so it's lowering the opponent's level of play and not being the ball machine for your opponent, not allowing them to dictate play. So anyway, I really think that if we can up our level of IQ, I really think that will help your results, in match play, and then also just in practice. Recognizing the effect that you have on your opponent, rather than focusing inward. It's got to be focusing on how you are affecting your opponent and how you are affecting their decisions. And because if you can create that emotion that is detrimental to their success, and if you can create that environment that causes your opponent stress, now you've completely sabotaged their tactical and strategic game plans, and you now are going to break them down, and you're going to be successful. And so I hope that this helped. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I think this was some good information, really kind of breaking it down on that mental level that is neglected in tennis. So anyway, hope to see you out on the courts here soon. Our indoor courts are open. We are taking reservations only. And if you can, we're only doing one court at a time, and they're blocked off for an 1.5-hour blocks. So if you have any questions or need help reserving those courts, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help you, and have a wonderful week. And we will see you here next Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and have a great Memorial Day weekend. Stay Hillcrest strong, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.